Hey everybody, this is your host Hoagie. I just wanted to jump in at the very beginning and say sorry. We had some technical issues, specifically with my microphone this last week. So this week's podcast is kind of muffled with my microphone. We've got it worked out, and hopefully it won't happen again.
The Armory is brought to you by DZR. DZR creates content and communities for gamers around the world. For a list of our other podcasts, search DZR on iTunes or visit us at dzrgaming.com. Enjoy the show.
Trips, do you have an idea? What are the gear mod changes that they're doing coming up?
Well, it sounds like that they're going to change it. Hold on, I don't know. I gotta look. Pause game.
Are they nerfing the bonuses, or is it just one major bonus?
No, I think there are some. I don't know if it's nerfing specifically. I gotta see if I can find my notes as well.
I had this all figured out at one point.
Gosh, I didn't think about this until just now.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. I
was gonna try to make shit up, but I was like,
honestly, I was reading it, and then I was like, oh crap, I don't know the answer to this. I hope Scribs does. Welcome to DZR's The Armory. We're going to take an in-depth look into the division, the gear, the guns, the strategy you need to take back New York. Hey, I'm your host, Hoagie. Welcome. I have a few special guests with us. Origami. Yo, you just got married a couple of days ago, didn't you?
I did. I got married a couple days ago, and I'm learning the new normal.
Well, congratulations, man. Thanks
Thank
for being back on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, I want to give a special shout out before I introduce our second co-host to Captain Underdog. He's going to be taking a little bit of a break from the cast for a bit, but if you see him, say thank you. He has done so much for this cast and the community, given us so much information. So if you see him on Discord or anywhere, say what's up. But taking his seat for a little while is going to be Mr. Scribbles. What's up, Scribbles?
not much. I'm glad to be here.
Hey, you were on the Century episode a little while ago, weren't you?
Yes, I was. It was a good time.
Awesome. Well, I don't think we got a chance during that episode to hear a little bit of your backstory. Let's hear a little bit of your background. Maybe 30 seconds on your gaming history. What made you pick up the division, and then how did you find DZR?
Okay, I started out, doing Halo, that kind of stuff, way back when Halo 1 first came out. I got into PC gaming pretty heavy. I played a lot of Diablo, played a lot of WoW, and then I saw the Division beta being offered, so I got in on it for that weekend, and I pre-ordered it that same day. I absolutely loved it. And it's kind of funny, I ran into Origami Train through the matchmaking feature in the DZ, and
that's awesome.
We've been, grouping up and killing stuff in the Dark Zone and in the incursions pretty much ever since then. And he was the one that just kept bugging me. He's like, dude, you got to check out the Discord. Got to get in here. There's a lot of cool people. So finally I said, you know what? I might as well check it out. It sounds pretty cool. And the rest is history pretty much.
Here we go. I can hear all our listeners talking about way back when Halo. They're like, I was 40 years old when that came out. What are you talking Showing your age a little bit, but that's okay. No problem. Hey, I'm in a special place right now. I'm actually in Dan Thrax's basement recording this right now. So we're on special location this week. It's going to be fun. And what a more special place than to be talking about something that's special coming up for the division. If you have a pulse and you care about the division, you know that 1.4 is coming our way. And it was whisperings a few weeks ago and what it could be or what was going to be in it. And about a week and a half ago is when the first State of the Game came out. And our minds were blown, and just how the game is going to be shifted and turned on upside on its head. It was just crazy. And then just a few days ago, we're recording this on Friday, and so it was just what 3 days ago that the special report was. 2 days ago, and since then, our minds have just been blown again. I've heard some people call this the Division 2 just because everything is getting changed. I was trying to explain to my wife what was happening. She doesn't play video games, but she likes that I have hobbies that are fun and that I enjoy. And so I was trying to explain how the Division is changing. And it's hard when you basically say, hey, everything's going to look the same, but basically everything in the game is different. That doesn't really do a good job. So what we wanted to do tonight was kind of walk through some of the information that they've given us so far, just so you guys are up to date on what we know right now. Now, precursor, some of these things are going to change between now and when you listen to it in like anywhere from 7 to 14 days. And then 1.4 could look completely different from this. Now, there's going to be some similar veins of what they're trying to accomplish, but a lot of the numbers we're talking about, or changes and even gear sets, could be different. So don't hold us to that. But we just want to give you the up-to-date information that we have, and starting to get you guys up-to-date info on what to expect when 1.4 hits. So what we're going to do first is we're going to just jump into the state of the game last week, because we want to give a foundation of what we're looking at for this 1.4. What were they trying to accomplish? It was really awesome stream that they did, and I think the very first things that they talked about, but I would say the major thing that they were trying to accomplish was people are dying too fast and NPCs are not dying fast enough. And so time to kill, or TTK, and time to be killed, or time to
TTD.
death.
Yeah.
What is it?
TTD, time to die.
Yeah, time to die. The TTK and TDD, TTD. Man, that's a tongue twister. They're going to be hot button words that you're going to hear, because that is basically the foundation of what this update is all about. And really, I applaud them for doing this, because they're just changing so much about the game. What stuck out to you guys as you were listening to the stream, or listening to the updates, about them just introducing even this idea of they're decreasing time to kill and time to death? What kind of stuck out to you?
You know, for me, it was really interesting because I hadn't put a lot of thought into time to kill or time to die. And that's sort of silly because I'm a data person, like by trade and by interest. But you know, when the toughness scaled up in sort of the 1.3 era, and we went into the dark zone and we started getting wrecked, I recognized that it was more difficult, and I recognized that it was significantly more difficult, but I didn't really have a sense of how much more difficult it was. And you know, when they rolled out the side by side comparisons in the state of the game, it was pretty eye opening to me, because I was like, yeah, it's been tougher, but I didn't realize how much tougher when they started showing the charts and the side by side comparisons of, you know, what you get into at level 12 and what you get into after 30. You know, a lot of us have done power leveling for our alts, so you kind of lose some of that perspective because you go in and do general assembly at a level 7, and you know, everything is a one shot, even if somebody just breathes on you wrong. And so that, to me, I had sort of lost the perspective of how different it was after 30. So that was the big standout to me, just seeing the drops in and how quickly you die in a typical current server, because I wasn't internalizing those numbers.
Scribbles, what about you? What were you thinking as you were kind of listening to that first few minutes of the stream?
Well, I'm kind of in the same place that Origami was, you know, the 1 to 30 experience, as far as you shooting at people, them shooting at you, it feels good, you know, and then you get to 30 and it just gets out of hand. But the flip side to that is when they started talking about the damage mitigation and the skills and min-maxing and that kind of stuff, you really see why the enemies were so out of control.
We're going to jump into some of those numbers a little later.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying too is awesome. I don't know about you guys. Have you guys played the 1 to 30 in the last couple of weeks? Scribbles, have you jumped back in there and played that?
Yeah, I'm leveling up another alt currently.
Nice.
I'm sitting in Brooklyn right now with my last alt. I haven't
Nice.
haven't pulled the plug yet, but yeah, it's definitely, he's right. It's very different, and it is clearly a period in the game's history where the focus was on the elite players and on the min-maxers, because the game still has to be fun for people who are really pushing those extremes. And
Absolutely.
and the side effect of that is that the casual gamers and the guys like me who love the game but only have a little bit of time here and there to put into it, really struggle more to keep up. And Scribs and I run quite a bit together, and with Underdog and some other regulars in the Discord. And when you run in a squad, it's not quite so dramatic, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of the guys that we interact with, and a lot of people I see sort of randomly out there, they're not the Marco Styles, they're not the Breezies, they're people who play the game as an escape, or they play the game because they have a couple hours here and there, but you couldn't keep up. I mean, Scribs is absolutely right. You just can't keep up at that level of difficulty unless you're a min-maxer.
Because of that level of difficulty, one of the things that they pointed to was that there's very little build diversity.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And one of the reasons, or one of the effects of that, is that even when people got loot, maybe it wasn't to help their build. Hey, Scribs, for you, when you thought about build diversity, how did you see that affecting the game and the effect of the fun of the game and also the community of the game moving forward? And just that whole idea of build diversity, loot into your build and min maxing.
Yeah. So build diversity has always been something that I've thought about coming from an RPG background. I've played a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. That's why the Division has hooked me so much. But the difference between the Division and those other games is diversity, exactly. Um, with the current gear sets the way they are, there's a very few that shine the brightest. So obviously that's what everybody's going to strive to get. And with the streamers and the YouTubers that are pushing really well-rounded sets that almost break the game in a way, that's what everybody wants. There's nobody trying to be outside of the box. There's nobody that says, hey, I'm going to go take this other gear set and try to do something with it, because in its current form, it's not going to be as good.
I mean, why would you?
Exactly. It's not going to be as good. So with these changes that they're going to be implementing, it's going to open the door to not having have to have a gear set. It's going to be, what role do you want to play, because you'll be able to achieve it.
Now, I have a question for you. Obviously, you have a WoW background. Played a little bit of WoW, but very little. I wasn't doing raids or things like that. How difficult was it to build full raid teams? Because if we're thinking about doing incursions or really high-end gameplay, now this is if we need really good builds to do high-end gameplay, we'll see about that. That's a different question, though. How hard was it to pull a full team together to fill those different roles?
As far as with WoW and stuff, it was very hard to find if you were just pugging a group. Now, if you were in a guild, it was easier because you had dedicated healers, you had dedicated tanks, you had dedicated DPS players, especially if you were trying to put together a 25 heroic raid.
25 players?
Yeah, we had
That's
25,
insane.
people
Awesome.
that were there that all had their own specific roles, and it was pretty wild. Now, is that going to be like the Division? Not at all.
No,
Because with the
definitely not.
Division, and especially with the changes in the PTS, with all of this new loot being available, open world drops, caches, whatever. I feel like you're going to be able to get a lot of gear, a lot of different sets, and you're going to be able to build them how you want to. If you want to have a tank set, work on it. You'll have plenty of gear to do that. If you want to go more skill oriented, be a healer, go for it. you know? And I think you could pretty much put together a DPS set out of most gear sets, just depending on how you roll your stats. I think it's going to open the door to just way more diverse game where people are going to be happy being able to kind of push the mold. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And really, I mean, when we were talking about, they were talking about time to kill, and really enemy scaling. They put up a bunch of graphs about what that looks like, and so you could really tell that they are doing a few things. One, they're making it easier. It's an easier game. I mean, that's a pretty straightforward thing to say, which I think is good. They also want it to be a lot more similar to the 1 to 30 gameplay. They said when you hit 30, the game completely changed, and they didn't like that. They liked the 1 to 30 experience. You could also see the build diversity. They really want build diversity to start coming in the game. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. One of the things they pointed out as they were talking about time to kill was the difference between different kinds of players. And they used base level 12 in their announcement. Most of you have seen this. And they talked about regular gear and kind of min-max gear. And when they ended up talking about it is the gap post 30, they had an idea. It might be plus or minus 250, 260% between the highest and the lowest player. But they thought that was actually a little low. It might be actually double that, plus or minus 500%. And to me, that is a mind-boggling number. I can't really necessarily see that in front of me, like what that actually looks like. But as for somebody who's never finished a heroic incursion, and seeing that Marco did 80 of them, it's like that is insane. And I know there's lots of practice and lots of different things that went into that, but I could tell why they. I put 6 days into the game for me personally, in my main character, 6 days, which isn't a small number. It's not a huge number, but that's 150 hours.
Yeah.
And if I can't do in 150 hours the hardest content in the game, either I suck, which quite possibly could be the case, or something is wrong with the game. And so one of the things that they really want to do is they want to make that, instead of such a wide band of power, they want to kind of shrink it down so it's a little closer. And so really, it's an easier game, and it doesn't take so much time and skill to finish the content. What else stuck out for you in the next part of that content, Origami?
Well, first I'm going to jump back and sort of note the side effect of what you just said, which is that 500% gap that they're talking about, I feel is one of the major reasons that matchmaking was such a mess and has been such a mess, is because if you do have people who are min-maxing and doing really specific things, they're not going to play well with the casual gamer because
they don't play well with others.
They don't, and that's not a dig on the casual gamer. It's not a dig on the min-maxers. Maybe a little, depending on where I fall on any given day. But the point of it is that if you're in that top level of that 500% gap, then things like gear score do sort of matter to you. And even though we say pretty regularly in our Discord, gear score is irrelevant. Well, if you're a min-maxer, you're hitting that gear score, and so if you see somebody
Absolutely.
who's at 220 where you're at 255, you know that the person that's coming into your group is not quite playing the same type of game that you are, and that does become relevant. So I think closing that gap, and we'll talk about some of the gear score changes because that will help affect some of that as well, but closing that gap between an average build and an optimized build, I think, has a side effect of making matchmaking not quite so toxic to some of the casual players. So, I mean, that really stood out.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that stood out to me.
I'm going to drop out 2 more points in the script. I want to hear your thoughts. One of the things they said about damage mitigation, after 30, it said something about 7 times more powerful than pre-30. That's pretty nuts. And the other thing, these are 2 kind of different topics, was that it has to be rewarding to optimize the gear, but it should not make such a huge difference. When you think about damage mitigation and also that work to optimize your gear, how does that play in? Did you see damage mitigation as a problem post 30 in 1.3? And then as you're working that gear, how does that kind of all play in? Do you think that's fair to say that you should be able to optimize your gear, but it shouldn't make that huge of a difference? I know those are kind of different questions.
So damage mitigation 1 to 30, for instance, smart cover. Um, you can tell that it's helping, but it's not. I mean, you're not going to live forever on it. Post 30, especially with, say, a tactician build or a reclaimer build, where you've got a max smart cover, you can sit on that thing. You can take mortar shots. You can take shotguns. I mean, 7 times more powerful, most definitely. I agree with that 100%.
Did they ever say why it's 7 times more powerful? I don't see the math. I didn't see the math, but like
If I had to,
that doesn't make any sense. Is it just the fact that you're able to min max your gear and get such stronger gear that's boosting it that much?
if I had to guess, I would say it comes down to the difference from, say, level 12, your spell power or skill power, excuse me.
No,
Hmm.
World of Warcraft.
Yeah, my bad. We got talking about it. Now I'm going back. Um,
It's got the shakes.
yep, the skill power.
Hey, they make cigarettes for that, man.
Yeah,
Joking.
yep. The skill power adding into the smart cover at level 12 is going to be minuscule compared to having 52,000 skill power at level 30 and that same smart cover being maxed out. I mean, yeah, 7 times at least, I would say. Um, and then your second part about the gear, optimizing
Yeah, it
gear.
kind of plays into it because you're talking about that boost to 7 times powerful. Like, should you be? Is that realistic? That I mean, if people are spending so much time on the game, should they be able to get godlike like that?
I mean, okay, all of the previous RPGs I've ever played, yeah. I mean, if you're willing to put in the time and if you're willing to just, I mean, grind on it, then you're gonna have the best gear and you're gonna almost be godlike in the game. I mean, that's how it's been in everything I've done as far as this style of game. Now, I get why they're doing it because they want the casual gamers to feel that power or at least some bit of it and not feel so underwhelmed by, well, I've got mediocre gear, but it's all the time I have available to invest in it. So I think what they're trying to do is squash that a little bit to where those two groups of people kind of meet somewhere in the middle of the road. But I honestly feel like, I mean, if you're putting in the work and you're willing to grind that out, you should have a little bit of a playing edge on the people that are just casually gaming. Otherwise, you know, it's, I mean, there's no reward for those people, those 1%ers that keep coming back to the game after they've done everything. They just
That,
want that last piece of gear.
that's a really interesting perspective. I wonder if they went into it with the idea of min maxing with the wrong view. Is that they went in as I don't know if they're World of Warcraft players or what, but they kind of almost thought, hey, if we're able to do this, they should be godlike, and it should put them much higher. But then they realize is they are not World of Warcraft, so they can't make their game like that.
Yeah.
And so they have to make it. I've never thought about that until you just said it. I wonder if that is part of the issue that they were, kind of having to deal with.
Yeah, I had sort of a similar impression, and I don't know if it's just me projecting or if it's really sort of how they went at it. But this clearly is a hybrid between a shooter and an RPG,
which is
which
awesome.
which is awesome. And if when I think about an RPG, I think about a game that has a smaller player base that's more dedicated. That, like Scribble said, the people who really grind at it are significantly better than the people who just jump in here and there, and it can be limiting for people who jump in later or just can't put in the time. We both actually jumped into Arc with a few of the
Yes.
other guys from the Discord, and the first thing we did is we jumped into a PvP server and we got ganked by a guy who was level 76,
It was
and we
terrible.
were like level 3, and
That
it
sounds
was
awful.
demoralizing, right? And so, but in an RPG, like that guy should have had some pretty significant level of alpha status over us because he'd been grinding it forever, and that's great. And I wonder if what happened. I suspect what happened is that because there's a Tom Clancy name on this, and because it takes
Absolutely.
place in sort of a real world Manhattan, it it looks like a shooter and it feels like a shooter in a lot of ways, and that kind of game has a huge player base to draw from. And so I think part of the problem they ran into is they tried to make an RPG with a shooter skin and kind of ended up with a shooter with an RPG skin, and are now having to kind of reconvene the game plan because it worked really well for the min-maxers, but they discovered that, holy crap, we have the number one selling.
It was the largest opening Ubisoft IP.
Right. And so you have to address that. Like, you have to make the game usable for all of those people that you didn't maybe expect would buy the game. And I mean, maybe they knew that they had something big. I suspect they did, but I don't know that they understood how big the game was going to be for them until they were pretty far down the development process.
Okay, we're getting off a whole nother tangent, but
Yep.
let's just say this. Hey, are we okay with them changing to make more money for their company?
Yes.
I'm down with that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
okay. It's a business. I understand, like, whatever. Good for them. They made tons of money. Let's make a good game. Let's have fun.
Well, and the money gives us another game in the future.
Exactly. I'm down with that. I love the bones of the game. Okay.
Yeah.
One last thing before we move on, and by move on, I mean to the next tangent. One of the things I'm super excited about, and I've really enjoyed even playing my alt the last couple weeks, was the weapons handling. They talked a lot about it in the state of the game a couple weeks ago. Basically, that they were pissed that people had lasers. Like, they're like, "Hey, that RPK should not be shooting like a laser. That's just not that's not real life." But so they were talking about changing the handling of the guns moving forward, which I'm really excited about. So there's stability, accuracy things that we'll get in later, but that's something that also is going to make it, I think, more balanced. But also, it's just going to make it different and closer to that 1 to 30 phase of the game, which I'm excited about. Okay, we've talked about a lot of these things already, but time to kill. The example they gave was a level 33 striker. I'm sorry, time to be killed is going to be like 2.1 seconds. Now it's going to be about 6, so that's 3 times as high. Time to kill for this level 33 Riker example was 3.8 with a standard ACR. Now it's going to be 2.1. So again, that you can just see where they're headed with this. Okay, now we're jumping into what big changes in the game and what that looks like. Before we move further on, we want to talk about the world tier system. Now, this is a pretty straightforward thing that most of us have probably heard about, but the world tier system basically completely changes the NPCs in the world. So if you go to World Tier 1, you're getting all level 30 enemies throughout all activities in the game. Now let's remind people, if you're playing 1.3, if you're doing normal mode, you're getting level 30 easy peasy red bars. If you're hitting hard, you're getting the blues, or I'm sorry, more veterans and higher level gear. And then all the way to heroic, when you're getting mostly elite,
Right.
Now we also know that level 34 and level 35 guys or NPCs are out of the game, but that before it was the mode, the heroic or challenge mode that determined the kind of loot that you got. And one of the things that they found out was if you're running challenge mode, you need challenge mode gear to then play challenge mode, which, if it sounds ridiculous, it is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't need the gear that you are trying to grind for. It makes it impossible for people to jump up into that heroics, those heroic gameplays, which I could say is probably one of the reasons I never done a heroic incursion. I didn't have strong enough gear to do it because I couldn't get it in challenge mode. And so world tiers, just so we're running through some of the info. World World Tier 1 is level 30 enemies, and it gives you gear score 163. And then once in a while, a 182 will drop. Tier 2 unlocks when you hit that gear score of 163. And so Tier 2 is level 31 enemies, and those guys will give you gear score 182 with an occasional 204. Now World Tier 3, that's level 32 enemies with gear score of 204 loot, and then sometimes a 229. And then Tier 4 will be level 33 enemies, gear score 229. Okay, Scribs, I'm going to be coming at you with this next question. It's going to be about the difficulty modes. Now, again, we know that difficulty modes are normal, hard, challenging, and heroic. One of the things and one of the problems that they saw is that the spikes between these modes of difficulty were large. And so normal to hard wasn't that big. Hard to challenging was a little bit much. And then challenging to heroic was a huge gap. And again, basically made it so challenging mode was really hard for solo players, and heroic mode was just really hard. And so what they're going to do instead is the difficulty is not going to determine the level of the gear or the level of the enemies, but it's going to determine how many enemies and also how much loot you get. So if I'm a solo player, I can play normal mode in heroic and still get 229 gear. But if I come in with a group of 4, I can then do World Tier 4. I'm sorry, I'm messing myself up. I can do World Tier 4 as a solo player on normal mode and still get 229 gear. But if I have a group of 4, I can then do World Tier 4 heroic mode on these missions and have gear raining all around me. So as you were looking at even about that change, it's a significant change of how they're doing the difficulty setting now. What are your thoughts?
I think it's great. It's going to help not only the solo players, but the people, for instance, that may be online and have a buddy that's online. So you and your buddy can group up, you two, you know, go in on World Tier 4 if you're ready for it, and throw it on, hard or challenging, whatever. And it's not going to be out of the realm of possible to complete it. Not only that, but if you do decide to bump it up difficulty or 2 or 3, the amount of loot will increase. So it's a win-win, for the current state where you go through a heroic Falcon Lost, and the only saving grace is if you haven't done it that week and you get 2 teals as opposed to 1. It's just way more rewarding. I think that's going to bring a lot of people back to running incursions, especially, and not just 4 horsemen farming or running Falcon Lost one time just to get that extra loot. It's going to open the door for running Clear Sky and making it a viable choice in being able to accrue gear. And I think they really hit it on the head there with that implement of the world tier systems, as well as the gear quantity scaling with the difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of times where I was going in and trying to do even challenging or heroic missions. I mean, I was around Lexington all the time because it was a fun mission, but I was also trying to get that Caduceus, or however the crap you say it. Still haven't gotten one, but the point is that sometimes I would not be able to run the kind of missions that I would want to run. So I was wanting to run heroic, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
And so this change in how we get gear and how we go into the tiers is going to prevent that problem from happening, which I love. And it makes it able to do being a solo player, but also a group player, which is an interesting dichotomy that they're kind of setting up, because they're setting up more group play, but also they're making it easier for the solo player. So maybe they're trying to regain a community that they had, and then hope that as it grows, that group play, builds back up. Hey, I want to kind of just run through some information here. The world level, what will it affect? It'll affect the enemy levels and missions, HVTs, open world. Side note: named roamers are coming back in the open world. That means Bullet King, he's back, and then all throughout the environment, those roamers that were originally there are now back, and they're going to be dropping some good gear, so you can go check out those those farming spots. Also, the underground is going to be affected by the world level tier and incursions. Now, I'm interested to see how incursions are affected by the difficulty ranking. We don't really have tons of information on what that looks like besides the normal stuff, and I just feel like that's not going to be the same for incursions. So we'll see what happens, but we do know it affects the level of the enemies in there. Incursions, this is good. Most content is going to be scaled for how many players are in it. And so if I'm a solo player going into a HVT or a mission, it'll be scaled to a solo player. This is a good, important note, though. Incursions will only be available, is the only content fully balanced for 4 players. So if I go in an incursion as a single player, it'll be just the same as if it was 4 players. Another thing is that elite NPCs are smarter. If you remember going to the underground, those guys were just smarter. They just seemed smarter, and that AI is going to kind of be moving out to the rest of the game. Another note I would want to put out, it's kind of just a bunch of random stuff, but it's important for you guys to know. I made a mistake. Heroic difficulty is only available on incursion, so I can't be running heroic Lexington anymore. It's not available right now. Okay, loot. Again, I'm just going to talk about a couple things here before we jump in. I want to talk about gear for a couple minutes before we finish this episode. Loot is just going to be raining everywhere. All enemies except in incursions are able to drop the best loot. I saw a trash mob on a stream the other day drop a gear set item. I've heard rumblings that the streams that are happening right now, that's actually more loot than is going to be in the end 1.4. We will see about that. But for now, it's just raining loot from everywhere. Trash mobs, just regular guys on the street, are going to be able to drop the best loot possible, which is awesome. It encourages some of that more that free roam around the world. So monthly drops, the monthly supply drops are still going to be in there. Looking at your current gear score, and then 2 other caches that we're going to be able to see. One is a field proficiency cache, which is basically a level up reward post 30. So if I'm a 30 and I get XP, where does that go? It goes nowhere. Well, now it's going to be added into your field proficiency bar, and when you hit the next level, per se, quote unquote, you're going to get a cache. And the one I saw actually the other day was the cache, or the field proficiency was 400,000 experience points. Now you say, that's a lot. Well, they were killing level 30 reds, and it was giving, I think, 1375 XP. So if you're killing, how many is that? 300? About 300 guys, you're going to get a field cache, plus the added XP that you get from completing side missions or missions. So I don't think that's going to be crazy. I think you're going to be getting these field proficiency caches, once every hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, depending on the activities that you're doing. That's just a guess. I haven't done the math. But that seems like it's going to be something that is going to be there. The other special cache I saw, was a combat assignment cache. And this was actually given after a daily mission. So the daily mission was kill 5 veterans. So he killed 5 veterans, and he got a cache. I didn't see what was in that cache, but just more ways to get loot. Oh, side note, going back to that field proficiency cache, he got 2 high-end weapons, or 2 high-end pieces. At that time, he was a 163, so that's what he got, because that's the tier that he was in. He also got 23 Phoenix credits. So it's very similar to a Slafly, the caches in the Dark Zone.
Yeah, that's the field proficiency cache was that drew the most excitement for me because you finish 30, especially if you've power leveled an alt, you finish to level 30 and you still have a whole bunch to do on the map, and so it's really great that XP is going somewhere now, and that you're getting some sort of incentive besides, oh great, I can do S&D missions now in that zone. Like it's fantastic that there's something to do with that XP now.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I'm post 30 and I do a mission, do I still get XP if I've done it already?
Yeah, yeah, you do. Every time you run like a Lexington Event Center, when you finish it, it pops up and says you got XP, and you even get XP for you know random things, headshots and
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
accolades.
like that.
So I wonder what if I'm looking for the most effective way to gain XP. I'm assuming it's doing missions. I wonder what the most efficient mission is to run for XP. I'm never gonna know, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be on Reddit
it'll
sometime.
be on there soon. And I don't know. It's been so long since I've done a mission. I don't remember if it's every time you do it or only if it's a daily assigned mission. I have to get back in.
I'm pretty sure it is every time you do it.
I
I
think
need
it's
to go
every time
back and check.
I know you get the
finish.
kill XP as well, so
Yeah.
there's plenty of XP out there.
That's the thing. They're just overall with these changes that we've seen in the PTS. They're just trying to make this game more rewarding for the amount of time that you're putting into it.
Yeah, exactly.
Every other RPG that you play, you can go out and kill trash mobs all day long, and they drop items. Not all of them are worth much, but they drop stuff. They drop currency, that kind of thing. They're trying to get back in line with that, make it more rewarding for people to go out in the open world, kill groups, trash mobs, just for the sake of I could get something good out of this. And I like that. I think it's going to bring a lot
agree.
more diversity. It's going to bring a lot more activity back to the game.
Loot,
Loot,
lots more
especially,
loot. Like loot, that's just so important.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, quick note on matchmaking, how world levels and world tiers affect that. Basically, the group leader affects the world tier. So if he's in tier 1 and I'm a level, I'm a 229 gear score guy, I can join that guy who's in tier 1, and I will not be getting loot from tier 4, even though that's my gear score. I will be tied in a tier 1 world because of the group leader. Now, if a guy that's tier, say 100 130 gear score wants to come up into World Tier 4 and I'm group leader and I'm 229, hey, come on up. You can go get World Tier 4 gear up there. And so that's an easy way to power level your friends. Also, matchmaking will be done within your world level. So if I'm matchmaking for a mission, it's going to be within my world tier, not all world tiers. Quick note, just again, we want to make sure you guys are getting good information as you're moving forward. Hey, I want to jump in. This is the last thing that we're going to cover on this podcast, and we're going to jump in next week to the rest of the information that may or may not be different at the time that you hear it. Gear score changes. Now, gear score has been such a hot topic because people were getting kicked from groups. We realized that gear score didn't matter all the time because there was overlap in some of the stats. So if I had a 182 gun and a 204 gun, the 182 could actually be better, not just with talents, but in base stats or with other gear. And so that's awful. And especially when you compare it with the gear set items, because you had gear set pieces that were 191 that were actually closer to 163 gear set. And then you had 268 that were actually closer to 229. And so what they did to stabilize gear set score and gear score, and I think in a really good way, is that specifically with gear set items, They took 191 and moved it to 163, 214 to 182, 240 to 204, and 268 to 229. Now they made sure that you knew that this was not affecting the stats. This was not affecting the stats in your gear. So if you have gear right now that's at 268, you'll log in once 1.4 is down and realize it's 229. That did not affect the stats. It just changed the number in the gear score. And I think this is going to be really helpful because I'm pretty sure we all realize that gear score sucks as a thing to look at, and this is just going to. It's just awful. There's really no way to put it. I honestly can't think of one good situation where gear score was helpful in its current state. What about you guys?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, gear score is an arbitrary number, really. And when the first round of gear sets came out, and suddenly I'm seeing, like, I'd gotten used to some of the numbers that were out there. Like at the time, we didn't have 229 weapons. We were maxing out at 204. And all of a sudden, we start getting sets that are a 191 or a 214. And I found myself transported back in time to college when I had to take math classes and try and figure out what all this stuff meant, because these numbers didn't really line up with anything. So I think this is a really great move, because for all intents and purposes, a 191 was a 163 already. I mean, it was. And so lowering those numbers, I think, is helpful to simplify the process, and especially for a lot of people who are kind of middle of the road gamers who are interested in the stats but are having some trouble. I mean, which sort of, I mean, we've talked about this in other episodes, and we'll talk about it again, I'm sure. But there are plenty of people who want to do the building and they want to do some of the min-maxing, but there's so many variables going on, and so simplifying is a good thing, and I think this is really great for that. The catch is going to be that it'll be important that it's well communicated, because I can think of some people, even on my friends list, who will log in suddenly, and instead of being at 255, they're going to be seeing their gear score dropped, and they're immediately going to go into conspiracy theory mode and think that somebody's screwing with them if they haven't been informed that that number is not related to anything else. And so, I think the word is getting out, and I hope it continues to get out, because that's going to be the one caveat to this drop, is that as long as people are informed, everything about it is good.
One of the thoughts I just had is if people aren't paying attention and 1.4 drops, they're going to be so confused.
Big time.
On the other hand, is that if they don't know 1.4 is coming, they haven't played the game in 6 or 8 weeks. They're not going to remember anything about what the game was before anyway. They're not going to remember their gear score potential.
Yeah, that's a good
and
point.
So that'll be really interesting. It's like I don't play for 2 weeks and I forget my guns or my talents on my guns.
Right.
So it's like whatever. Hey, Scribs, one of the things they talked about is they're pulling gear score numbers down. They said they're not nerfing gear sets, but for high-end gear to come in line with the gear sets, they're actually giving it a buff. Now, when you take all that into account, what are your thoughts on the gear scores dropping, kind of making gear score more relevant, and then that high-end gear, the 229 gear, being more viable?
Well, I think it's going to be cool because getting rid of the 5-piece set bonuses, is going to open up...
Spoiler!
Yeah, is going to open up the possibility to run 229 high-end items that are going to be beneficial. You know what I mean? Like, some of the 229s in their current form have some really cool talents, but given that the base stats are kind of garbage right now, it just, to me, doesn't make sense. It doesn't outweigh the benefit of the talent to take a hit in the stat. So by bringing the stats in line with the gear sets, you're opening up, a huge door to new gear set comps and new talents to incorporate into your gear sets. And it's going to be really, really crazy, and it's going to be a shocker, because up until this point, the only high-end items that were really ever considered were Savage Gloves, Reckless Chest, maybe Vigorous Chest on the occasion. So that's going to open up a huge door. And I think by bringing the gear score numbers down on top of the world tier matchmaking system, it's going to create a lot less stress and chaos for people just trying to matchmake and just trying to get through an incursion or a DZ run without having to worry about immediately getting booted just because
Yeah.
my gear score is lower than yours. Big deal.
I mean, if you're running Clear Sky for 45 minutes and you can't do it, there needs to be some changes within the group. But it's not an instant kick anymore, which is really great.
Right.
Yep.
One of the other things, you're just talking about talents on high-end gear. We know that talents are changing. We know that gun talents are changing, and some of that high-end gear talents are changing. So Vigorous and Reckless and Savage are not going to be the only talents that we're going to want to run on those high-end gear, from what I've heard. Now, we don't have anything confirmed about what they will be, but they've just alluded. And so that'll be interesting, too. Another facet of building and what that looks like. As we're going forward, obviously stats play a big role in our gear. So here's a little info. All tier 2, that's 182 gear or higher, um, all gear except holsters. Holsters have stats on all three, on firearms, electronics, and on stamina, and so the holster has that. But now each other gear piece will also have three numbers, but there will be one main stat. Here's the example, and this is from Bankai Badger, a friend of ours from the Discord. He got a set of knee pads, and then he had 500 stamina, and then he also had 65 firearms and 65 electronics. And the reason they gave this is that they wanted to make sure that the balance was going up as you got higher in the tiers. Now, I'll say I don't actually understand why exactly that works that way, but they basically said that it's going to bring more balance and going to help the players as they scale up. Do you guys have any other insight into that? Why those small numbers make such a big difference?
I have a speculation on it, and like you said, I haven't had anything confirmed, but when you're trying to build a balanced build, or even when you're trying to do any kind of min-maxing, um, the struggle is always unlocking the weapon talents that you have. And one of the things I've noticed with my builds is I'm always like 4 electronics points too low for my unlock, but all my gear mod slots are used up. And so my suspicion is that by having those secondary and tertiary stat rolls, even though they're small, they may help with some of that buffer in the same way that a electronics mod or a stamina mod helps kind of bump you up that extra little bit. My sense is that it's related to that, but I haven't seen anything confirmed as far as a deliberate rationale for that. We know that some of the things are going to require more primary stats. Like we know the balancing is shifting on toughness or on skill power towards the primary stats and less towards the armor or less towards the skill power, and that may have something to do with it as well.
It's going to be interesting as we move forward because really we can't compare a lot of this stuff to 1.3 anymore.
Right.
The game that we're playing now is not 1.4, and so it's just going to be so interesting to see what this actually means because we're seeing some numbers maybe, and we're seeing people die fast. So what does it actually mean? Like we haven't seen a min-max build yet in the gameplay streams.
Right.
I have a feeling it's going to be completely dominant. I'm almost feeling like that's going to be an issue, but I'm not sure exactly how they're going to fix that. We'll get to that at another time.
Hey guys, this is your host Hoagie again. I just wanted to let you know that this segment is a little behind the scenes look on the Armory. We don't get everything perfect every time, and sometimes there's little goof ups, and so I hope you enjoy the hilarity that has ensued.
Well, I want to move on now to gear mods. They threw out a few numbers when they were talking about the state of the game about gear mods. And they say at level 12, mods contributed 6% to the time to kill. Post level 30, it was 40%. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they're doing is basically they're nerfing gear mods. I'm not even sure exactly what. They're just changing it because everything it's not a nerf or buff. It's a balance and change and complete update. And so what they're actually going to do is they're going to be taking some of the skill bonuses away, the minor bonuses, and they're going to be putting in performance mod slots to the pack, holsters, and knee pads for that skill. Some of those minor skills, which is going to help us. There's less RNG in there, which is great. But also with the gear mods, they're doing some changes. Scripts, do you have an idea? What are the gear mod changes that they're doing coming up?
Well, it sounds like that they're going to change it. Hold on, I don't know. I gotta look. Pause game.
I know they're re-rolling all those. I was going to mention that, but what are they nerfing? Are they nerfing the bonuses, or is it just one major bonus?
No, I
Check
think
this
there
out
are
figured
some.
out at one point.
I don't know if it's nerfing specifically. I gotta see if I can find my notes as well.
Gosh, I didn't think about this until just now.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I
I
was gonna
just
try to make
I
shit up, but I was like, I really.
Just do
no.
it anyway.
Honestly, I was reading it, and then I was like, oh crap, I don't know the answer to this. I hope Scribs does.
Well, I kind of do. I know that. I know that they're changing it to. You're still gonna be able to have a main mod slot with two.
Performance.
Super.
What are they doing to mods to nerf them?
Oh,
Is it just you can't have as many?
Well, they reduced the number a little bit, I think, because isn't it the you end up with 4 performance mods, and some of that's additional space, but not all of that is additional space.
why can't I find anything about this?
So basically, they're changing the mod slots.
They're changing the mod slots up to put more to force you
Yes,
to
yes,
use
yes.
the performance
In the
mods
performance.
because
So this is interesting. So
at every turn
they've
try.
added more slots
Yeah,
in general, but they've substituted some of the gear mod slots for performance mod
right.
slots. So do we know what's the
Well, and it's
how many regular mod slots did they take away?
well, now I started looking, so now I moved away from my thing. So I believe. Well, they may all be additional. Let me think. The holster does not currently have a mod slot, so that's getting one. The knee pads has a mod slot already, but that'll get a
I think
second.
you get 4 performance mod slots.
Yeah,
2 on the
and 2 on the
backpack,
pack.
1 on the knee, 1 on the holster.
How many gear slot or mods do you have?
The shit.
2? 1? Because it was 2 on the chest,
2 on
right?
the chest. There was 1
on
on the
the
knee
chest.
pad, 1 on the mask, and 1 on the pack before.
Hold on. I'll be able to tell you in just a second.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Now we're going to 2.
No, I think we still have. We have more than 2. I think the thing that's going away is the skill bonuses. So on those previous rolls, you would have a turret damage or a smart cover health or a support station range. Those
Yes,
are the things that are going away, and the performance mods will have 2. Currently, they have 2 of those skill mods on them typically. So
Yeah. Okay.
so it is a net gain. It's just sort of it's an interesting way of going at it because they've tried really hard from the very beginning to get people to use performance mods, and nobody uses them. I mean, the
Well, yeah.
part where you have to give up the gear mod in order to use a performance mod
No one will do it.
almost never makes sense. I've had a few instances where I've done it for like one of my slots, but that was only if I had gotten max armor rolls without any mods, and all of the other things were lining up. So it's very rare. So I think this will be cool.
Okay. Scribs, give us the numbers. How many gear mods can you fit in right now? Do you know? I wish I had my PlayStation open or something.
How many we can have currently?
Yes.
Currently 2,
5.
4, 5.
5.
Okay, so what is it going to be next?
Okay,
next?
so I'm seeing on here the chest piece still has 2.
2 gear mods
Yes,
slots.
yeah, on this PTS thing.
Now, are there any of those performance though?
No, those are
Didn't
just
look
gear
like
mods.
it.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm trying to work through this real
you're
quick.
fine. I'm totally putting this in the cast. It's gonna be great.
Epic. That's what my kid says. You know, this brings up the interesting sort of side note of all of this is there is so much information coming out in such a short amount of time. It's really impressive, not only from Yannick and
Mind-boggling.
Hamish and sort of the massive crew, but also from the streamers and from everyday gamers who are in the PTS. Like it's incredible how much info, and and some of it I'm finding conflicts with other stuff, and so just the filter through it
awesome.
has been. None of us are sleeping.
Shit.
No. Oh, but by the way, also while we're waiting, side note, hey, scavenging is going away.
Yeah.
Fantastic! Oh my gosh, please.
I'm thrilled.
Okay, so that happened. Screw it. Nobody cares.
Yeah. And
Great.
I'm thrilled for one main reason, which is that people always ask if scavenging has been fixed yet, and then it ends up being
because it's broken
3 or 4
forever.
minute conversation about how it's still broken after 30 and yada yada yada, but then nobody quite can agree whether that's true or not. So yeah, just get rid of it.
Yeah. When the dev team trashes it, it was majorly effed up.
Yeah.
Okay. Any answers, Scribs?
I'm getting close.
Scribs is just pissed.
I'm
It's
just.
like, what the crap?
This is bothering me now. This has become personal.
All right, I'm going to mute my mic so I can type and find it faster than he can.
Oh, race.
Oh. Uh-oh. I think I found it.
Gear on. So we had 5 total.
Okay, so I'm seeing...
No, I'm lazy. You can do
I'm
it.
seeing a main mod slot on the mask, 2 mains on the chest, 1 main on the knees with a performance, a main on the backpack with 2 performances.
So 5 total. Gear mods.
Yes.
Yeah, so that doesn't change then.
So we got 5
and 4
main
5 and 4.
Yeah. Mod slots. And then 4 performance mod slots. But that's because... Isn't that because they're getting rid of...
They're getting rid of skill bonuses.
Yeah, skill bonuses.
Which is where the performance mods... I mean, it's the same stuff. It's just it doubles up in a performance mod.
Okay, so for those of you who skipped ahead and are trying to find the information, right now we have 5 total gear mods. In 1.4, we will have 5 gear mod slots still, but then we're also going to have 4 total performance mod slots that have to be performance mods. Another side note is that you guys said skill power will no longer be a boost in performance mods, correct? And then
yeah, I believe so.
Also, they're re-rolling all performance mods, aren't they?
Yeah, you're going to see a re-roll on the performance mods. The advice from Yannick was if you have them, save them, and as you get more in the next few weeks, continue to save them because that'll increase the chances for the rolls that you want on them.
Now, are they re-rolling gear mods?
I believe
they
are, but I do not.
I thought so too, but I don't necessarily remember.
I'm pretty sure they are. I think they're going to be re-rolling mods.
Yes.
Period.
I think you're right too because they're rolling a lot of that. They're also, we didn't talk about this, they're also re-rolling weapon mods. We might be talking about that next episode, but whatever. Well, this has been fun. Hope you guys enjoyed all the information. We still have more to give you, but we'll have to wait till next week. I'm sure some of the things that we said were incorrect or just confusing. We're really sorry about that. There's lots to talk about and lots to give out. But we just want to give a foundation. Hopefully, most of the stuff isn't going to change. Some of the numbers are going to change a little bit. But we really appreciate you guys being part of this cast and listening. We'd love to hear your questions. Connect with us on Twitter and also email us at dzrarmory@gmail.com.